The Soul Chaperone, written by Jason M. Burns. Narrated by Jason M. Burns. Season 1, A Tough Nut to Crack. Episode 2, Never Amore. I wake in the morning with one corner of the fitted sheet unrestrained from the mattress and wrapped around my ankle, choking my toes of their circulation. The incessant tapping at my window, as if someone is not so gently rapping at my brain, yanks me out of my unconsciousness. By the time I realize who the would-be raven is, I'm glad for the concierge-like services. It's payday. Sitting up, I untangle my tingling foot from the sheet's anaconda-like grip and stumble out of bed, resting my weight against the laundry basket that doubles as a stationary bike. The damned bike was an impulse buy brought on during a brief moment of desired self-betterment. I've since learned my lesson. I carefully reach up toward my chest to ensure that the necklace I never take off is still hanging where it should be. I do this every morning out of habit, even before I hit the bathroom to empty my bladder. It's not the necklace itself that means so much to me. It's the ring that dangles from it. My wedding band. Meanwhile, the tapping continues, only it grows increasingly more impatient with each passing poke of the glass. "I'm coming," I hiss. I make my way across the room, sidestepping the remains of a day-old microwavable pizza that I'm shocked to find uneaten given Germain's voracious appetite. I pull down forcefully on the window shade and then release. It rolls into itself and takes the bird by surprise. "Shit," I say, laying eyes on the courier. "You really are a raven." The jet-black bird ruffles its greasy feathers as I open the window. It adjusts itself on the sill, 3 stories separating it from the ground below. "Where's the usual guy?" I ask. "The blue jay." Being a bird of few words, it doesn't respond. Instead, it stretches itself into my bedroom and drops an unpolished, symbol-covered coin into my outstretched hand. Although a beak can't smile, I can personally attest to one frowning because this is one sour-looking Edgar Allan Poe acolyte. "Something I said?" I ask, hefting the weight of the coin in my palm. The bird blurts out a series of burbling caws, each one more judgmental than the last, and then takes flight. I angle myself out of the open window and shout defiantly, demanding the last word. "I prefer the blue jay!" As far as my compensation is concerned, the load feels lighter than normal. With the whole Charlie fiasco going down the way it did, though, I guess I should be happy I'm seeing anything at all. I know it's probably a weird sight to behold, watching as a grown man is paid in some obscure coinage by a bird he's never met before, but it's really all I know. Even before I was a full-time soul chaperone, I didn't exactly adhere to a steady diet of paychecks. Don't get me wrong, I dreamed big, but those dreams rarely translated into financial gain. After the first time I saw Jensen Jasper perform, I was intent on becoming a bona fide rock star. Unfortunately, such ambitious cups can't hold water when you can neither carry a tune or play an instrument. After that, I set my sights on becoming a sand castle architect. Mountain living made that one difficult. To this day, I still wonder why Anna put up with my shit. I hunt down a wearable pair of jeans crumpled over the handlebars of the exercise bike and snap them to attention with a flick of my wrists. First, I slip myself into the pants and then the coin into them, submerging it into the front pocket on my right side for easy access by my favored hand. Each piece of currency, made from the alloy electrum, is minted not just for the payee but for the pay period as well. The markings that dress the coins change every time they show up at my house, which is why I have to take it, first to be read, and then to be exchanged. It's a pain in the ass, but at least it's a living. I make my way downstairs to the kitchen to fill my stomach and start my day, working up even more of an appetite on the journey. I say journey because our house, my house, is big, almost garishly so, and you tend to break a sweat going from one room to another. When my parents owned the place, they operated a successful bed and breakfast here, the Bauman Inn, which is why I have 13 additional bedrooms to choose from should I ever get bored of the one I'm currently squatting in. Anna had wanted to bring the inn back to life, reopening it under a different name, but the dream died when she did. I hit the snack cupboard and grab a wholesale jar of peanut butter, the kind so big you build muscle just picking it up, and pair it with a spoon from the utensil drawer. I'm no certified dietitian, but I know a breakfast of champions when I taste one. 2 scoops in and I have to wash my PB minus the J down with something, so I opt for a glass of skim milk because, obviously, employed and health conscious. Have I mentioned that I have this whole grown-up thing down pat? As I sip from my musky moose pint glass, I think back to last night and replay Charlie's impression of the Hindenburg in my mind. It's hard to call it murder, but what happened to Charlie was clearly intentional. That voice, that horrible, nightmare-inducing voice, had to come from some mouth somewhere, and although I'm not a betting man, I'd go all in on it coming back to bite me in my ass eventually. I've been at this particular vocation for about 7 months now, and last night was the first time any outside players crashed the party. I was actually the one doing the party crashing on the day the gig fell into my lap, because the sole chaperone job that I have now was occupied when I unintentionally applied. It was mid-December and I was out in the forest snowshoeing, still mourning the loss of Anna, when I stumbled on a badly injured German shepherd, the unforgiving teeth of a poacher's trap clamped on its paw. As I approached the wounded dog, it looked directly at me and said, "I need you to call God." At least in my emotionally drained state, that's what I thought he said. "Hey, idiot," it barked again, its left hind leg bleeding so badly that it looked like the dog was sitting atop of a revolting snow cone. "I need you to take my phone from out of my collar and call Todd." Now, you would think a talking dog asking me to use his cell phone to call some random guy would send my snowshoes running in the opposite direction. But after everything I had been through that week, after all of the loss I had suffered and the pain I had absorbed, I looked the dog straight in the eyes and I said, "Okay." Profound. Sure enough, there was a cell phone tucked into the dog's collar, and after it shared its password with me, Cookie, I was able to access the address book. Inside, there was only one listing, Todd, so I called the number. It rang twice before being picked up, and although no one spoke, I could hear someone breathing on the other end of the line. "Say, a blizzard has come to Scituate," the dog instructed me as the life drained from its body. I did as I was told, and almost immediately the call disconnected. "They hung up," I said. "That's what is supposed to happen. Now listen to me. Put your hand on my head." I hesitated, half expecting the dog to bite me, but in its dying state I figured I would at least have the reflexes to recoil away in time to avoid a tetanus shot. So I knelt down in the blood-soaked snow and granted its wish. "Is your soul uncontaminated?" it asked me. At this point, having lost as much blood as it had, I just assumed the talking dog was delirious, so I told it what I thought it wanted to hear. "Yes." "Is your soul unstained?" it continued. "Of course," I assured it. "Is your soul undebased?" I thought on this for a second and then shrugged my shoulders. It would be a surprise to me if it weren't. The dog closed its eyes and continued speaking. "Then in the name of Todd and the Holy Spirits who I have freed in the days before, I grant you that which was gifted to me so that you can free them in the days to come." The dog's eyes never opened again. He died right there in the snow, ensnared in a trap set by someone who anticipated much bigger game. It was about that time when I realized just how insane the unfolding scene was, and I wondered to myself if the events were crazy because I myself was going crazy. I fell back in the snow, and as I looked up, I saw the dog, at least its spectral outline, standing over its own lifeless corpse. It spoke, which for some reason I found way more unsettling than when it was just a regular talking dog. It told me that I was now the sole chaperone for the White Mountain District. Generally, in these types of situations where one chaperone hands the reins over to another, I would have been required to guide my predecessor through his own door. But the ghost dog told me flat out that it had zero intention of complying with the remainder of the protocol. It apparently had unfinished business to do here, and Todd was just going to have to accept it. Not knowing my ass from my elbow at that point, I took it as gospel. As it turns out, Todd did not accept it. None of it. And he has been pissed off at me and the world ever since. The last thing he wanted was a washed-up guy like me working a district in his region, but I had already seen behind the curtain, and, with the German Shepherd still running around out there unchaperoned, there were way too many variables at play that could cost him his own job. So, the Todd I had mistaken for God begrudgingly kept me on, and now here I am, an unattended consequence of someone else's actions. I've been more or less rolling with the punches ever since. I finish my breakfast and head for the front door. On the way out, I grab a deflated bag of store-bought bread from the counter and dig my keys out of a candy bowl that my mother once kept stocked with mints for the guests. Although the inside of the house has been left dusty and dank on account of my not giving a damn, the outside of the property is as pristine as it was during the inn's heyday. My uncle on my father's side owns a landscaping company in town, and although he's as bitter as an arugula and saffron salad that the property was left to me, he refuses to let the exterior fall into disarray. Once a week, he sends his guys over here and they go at it pro bono with every herbicide, fungicide, and pesticide that they can fit into the back of their truck. Sure, the grounds look nice and I wouldn't know how to mow the lawn myself, but I know exactly what's going on. Chemical warfare. My uncle wants this place, and by exposing me to every lethal substance his trade can cook up, he's counting on me fading from the picture sooner rather than later. I make my way to the backyard and sidle up alongside a pair of vigorous rose bushes, one with pink flowers and the other with Valentine's red. They are my mother's favorite plants, and although I've barely lifted a finger to care for a single living thing other than myself since Anna died, these bushes have yet to be thirsty on my watch. I hope you're a butt man, I call out, reaching my hand into the bag of bread and pulling out the 2 remaining pieces, both of which once capped off the loaf on either side. I rip off chunks and toss them to the grass. It only takes a few seconds for the beady eyes of the black squirrel, a genetic rarity here in New England, to appear from out of the overgrown brush that lines the property. It bounds towards the bread, unafraid. "You call this a meal?" it complains, taking one of the whole grain gobs into its mouth and tucking it into its cheek like a wad of chewing tobacco. "Beggars can't be choosers, Jermaine," I say. I guess I have taken care of another living thing since Anna died, but there's no nostalgia or sentimentality attached to me tossing scraps to Jermaine. It's more about self-preservation. And if I'm being completely honest with myself, it's nice to have a distraction kicking around this big house of memories. Here's the thing. Jermaine looks like a squirrel, but he's actually the former overnight attendant at a rest stop gas station out on I-93. One fateful shift, he chose to ignore his own caution, slippery when wet sign, and went ass over tea kettle, whacking his head on a motor oil display and gashing himself up something fierce. By the time the next customer stumbled into the shop, Jermaine was already a few pints shy of the necessary human lubricant needed to sustain life. That's when we met. "Any sign of the German Shepherd out there in the woods?" I ask him. "Negative," he replies, munching on the bits of bread as I toss them down to the grass. "Got my nuts to the ground, though." On reflex alone, my face scrunches up in disgust, remembering what he looked like in his former life. Let's not use that phrase ever again. Jermaine was defiant about not going through his door from the get-go. A lot of newly dead people are, but instead of trying to outrun me, he bartered. Turns out he had been squirreling his third shift earnings away for years, hiding them deep in the mountains because he didn't trust the banks or the government that backed them. If I would help him find and reconnect with his estranged son, he'd lead me to the loot and I could do with it what I wanted. The money would be nice, don't get me wrong, but I agreed to help Jermaine because I needed an extra set of eyes searching for the dog. Todd put that on me, and until I track him down and finish the job, I'm always going to have one foot in the shithouse. So I taught Jermaine how to possess another living thing, he picked the least conspicuous rodent he could find, and now here we are, living a lie within another lie. "What about Eddie?" he chirps. "I'm working a lead," I assure him, tossing the last of the bread to the ground. "I've come up with a plan that I think will get the ball rolling. Frankly, I'm kind of pissed I didn't cook it up months ago because it's kind of foolproof, which is saying a lot given the 2 fools involved." Jermaine arches forward like a contortionist and scratches at his neck with one of his nimble hind legs. For a brief moment, I forget that there's a human soul buried behind the pelt. "Just don't tell him it has anything to do with me. If you do, he'll take flight." "I got it," I say, turning around and making my way for the car. "You just worry about avoiding predators until I can get his ass back here. And keep an eye out for that dog." "Where are you going?" he asks. I pat my pocket to cash my check. Agitated, Jermaine's tail shoots straight up at his back and begins to frantically flutter. "Stay away from the banks! Big Brother is watching!" Maybe. I just hope that Anna isn't watching, so that she can't see what a shit show my life has become. Wherever she is. Thank you for listening. For more information, visit thesoulchaperone.com.